Hi, everyone. A very warm welcome to this session of our ZIPINAR. We call it ZIPINAR. We try to give to our attendees, to our audiences who have joined in on our Let Us Talk It platform to give the best information, new ideas in this 1 hour that they spend with us. And we have two speakers on our Let Us Talk It platform like every week. And if you have come to know about it, please spread the word. That is the little thing that you can do from your part. And if you have any suggestions, comments, please do leave that on the comment section. And if you want to interact with the panelists, with the speakers, then please do join the Zoom link. And as usual, we do not stop at the speaker and professional webinars only. We spread out for our youth. We try to do something for the next generation as well. And doing that, we have two sessions of younger youth group starting from 6-year-old and the older youth group from teens. And they do live webinars every Friday and Saturday, different timings, and that you have to join to see how they improve in public speaking, how they improve speaking their mind out. So all these information you can get on our website, letustalkit.com. And if you have a kid and you want to enroll them, please do enroll them at letustalkit.com/youth, and you can register your kid there. So having said that, we want the topic for the day. So the topic for today is 4 stages of mind progression: knowledge, learning, insight, and wisdom. And how does it work? And when it works, and how it works, and where it works. We'll learn everything from our speaker, but this is about life. So this is very important. This is what we live for. We are here so this will be important. And to speak on this topic, we have with us Yatin, and he brings with him a proven track of business results for more than 34 years in the corporate world working. He has an exposure to diversity of geography and culture, and his career milestone has been huge. He has been a credentialized personal coach, independent director, CEO, and definitely the list goes on, and which I will definitely ask him to elaborate on. He has been, he writes on LinkedIn and has 150 plus posts and 40 plus articles. He has been a member of ICF and other active coaching groups in India. And we definitely people I would say, talking to him and being in contact for last few days, he is a perfectionist. He has been working on his slides as much as he has experience, but he wants to do better, as what I have understood. So thank you so much. Really honored to have you, Yatin. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Julian, and good morning to people on EST, and good evening to people on IST. It's wonderful to connect those who are woken up and those who are ready to sleep now. And I'm not being a reason for either. Okay, so I'm going to put I made some slide sets for you. So I'm going to put that on. Okay, can everybody see the slides now?
Yes, if you could do the present mode, please.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Yatin, go ahead.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so a couple of disclaimers before I start, so that we come on the same wavelength, we understand the same way. First is the words I'm going to use: knowledge, learning, insight, and wisdom are more of my nomenclature to depict and convey specific meaning. These may or may not have to have alignment with the dictionary meanings, because our focus is meaning and not words, and words are only used as carriers to convey the meaning that we create. That's one. Second is, I am not here for giving you some knowledge or gain. In fact, there is nothing of what I will tell you now that you may not know previously. Then why am I here? Oh, I'm here to facilitate a journey for all of us to explore and create meaning from the known. In fact, I believe the essence of adult life is not as much as in creating new things, but as much as it is in finding new meanings to what we know and what we do, including life itself. And therefore, I have no prescription for you. I'm only making you more aware and informed. I think as an adult, you must make your own choice because it's your life. So we are now entering into the topic of 4 stages of mind progression. Here we go. Primarily, I'm going to take you through 3 sections. One is called why, what, and how. What is the content is for any task. Why is the purpose behind which anchors and directs, and which makes you understand what more, and how is the process. In addition, I also made a slide for you to, if you have a question saying that what significance it has for me as an individual. Okay, so let's start with that. See, life to me is about sense making. It's not what is happening around, but what sense you make out of that, which fundamentally defines what you be and what you do. In a way, your world is inside you, it's not outside. The power is therefore in your mind, inside, in the perspective that all of us hold. And its power is not in intelligence, tools, or equipments, and list in the circumstances. So essentially, we're talking about the power of perspective that we hold in the mind. And therefore, to understand, that's why we want to understand the 4 stages out of which your mind can operate from. So it is essentially what we do is a function of how we see, which decides how we achieve. And there is an analogy which I'm not going into because of paucity of time, but you can connect. If some of you may know this story of elephant and 5 blind men, which powerfully highlights the power of perspective. Those of you who may not know, if you're interested, I'll send it to you. Okay, this is important. I heard that Abraham Lincoln apparently used to stand in front of a mirror every day, asking a question to himself, saying, am I a better person today than I was yesterday? Now, I don't even know whether this is a true story, and that's not relevant. What is more important are the 2 learnings that I take from this. One is that we get outdated every day unless we are alert, like currency devaluation. That's important to know. And second, to update me, upgrade me, or evolve me is my responsibility. Okay, and that is why the mind progression. So this is where we will enter into the what of our content. Essentially, as an adult, we have a choice of operating at any of these 4 sequentially progressive stages at which our mind can operate: knowledge, learning, insight, and wisdom. Now, as I said, these are nomenclatures I'm using, so it's important for me to make you familiar on what it stands for. They're not very different from dictionary meanings, but honestly, dictionary are not, they're not very clear in the difference between the 4. So here we stand. Knowledge to me is information. It is simply what is. Anything around you, which is your observation, reading, whatever you see and hear, is knowledge. That is outside of us, and that's common, that's same for all. Learning, the next stage, is the processing of knowledge. When you start processing, you ask a question saying that what does it mean? So that essence of your knowledge and sense making is learning. Insight is realizations from the application of that learning. Insight learning and knowledge is outside us, insight and wisdom is inside us. And that is what makes us distinctive. Wisdom is an understanding across domain boundaries. It's a repository of synergistic learning and insights. It's a holistic understanding, which is the next stage of insight. Now, human journey of evolution is to grow from the most basic stage that we can operate from is knowledge to the most evolved, which is wisdom. And that is our fulfillment journey. In fact, the problem in the world is being under-leveraged. Our extent of being under-leveraged is the distance between knowledge and wisdom that we miss to map. And while it's your choice, and if you actually see where are many of us stand, on knowledge, you'll find 100% people on knowledge. There are many on learning who's gone through our academic upbringing. There are few who are dedicated and involved who reach insight. There are very few who reach wisdom. And that's why some of us remain under-leveraged. But if you ask me, wisdom is the space we should operate from. Okay, now I'm giving you the transitioning from stage 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4, so that you exactly understand what it takes and how is it different. Now, knowledge is like raw food ingredients. They are required, but they're meaningless until we process them and convert into a meaningful recipe. So if knowledge is equivalent to fruit, learning is taking juice from that fruit. And unless you take juice, you don't get nourishment. Now, transitioning between learning and insight is like this. Learning at best is academic, it's theoretical, and it's mostly common to all. Insight happens when you apply the learning into your work domain, and you may be a housewife, you may be a consultant, a chairman, a chaprasi, or a scientist. So when you take that learning and put it into your work domain, what comes up to you through your experiential realization is insight, and that is inside you, and that is unique to you. Theoretical learning, like Newton's law of motion, is same to you and same to me. But the nuances I pick up by using those is unique to me. If learning is a digestion process, insight is assimilation. That is where it becomes a part of us. Now, it's important to understand how we progress or transition from insight to wisdom. Insight is about growing deeper and deeper. It's more and more of the same. That's expertise. Wisdom is going broader and broader. It's going lateral. That is common sense. Insight is therefore domain specific. So you are either finance expert or a marketing expert or a real estate expert or whatever. Wisdom is domain agnostic. And I'll explain to you later that. Insights are acquired. Wisdom is your inner software which you activate. It's inside, it needs to be invoked. Now, insight is knowing more of the known with the use of the known, and you become expert. Wisdom, it is actually a vertical. Wisdom is horizontal. Wisdom is connecting the known with the unknown. It's trying to understand unknown from what you know. It's an ability to make sense of the unfamiliar using what you're familiar with. And there are examples. We wouldn't have time to go through all, but let's say most of you will be aware of a concept of resonance. In metal, in physics, for example, each metal has a natural frequency. If you strike the metal at frequency, it resonates, which means it vibrates at twice the natural amplitude. Now, can you imagine this concept can be transposed and we can understand in humans, like human resonance? Of course we can. Humans also resonate. Now, if we can strike at a wavelength, if we can connect with a person and tap into his wavelength, I think humans resonate. That's why human output is always possible to be more than machine output. 1 plus 1 can be greater than 3 for humans. That's human resonance. Now, this is wisdom where I can transpose a concept of physics into understanding how it can happen in humans. Same is for cow rumination and human reflection, but I'm not going to take it in details because of paucity time. If time permits at the end, and if you have a query, I'll be delighted to explain this more. Okay. Now at this stage, Julian, how much time do we have now? Okay.
Yeah, I think typically it is, I would say 20 to 30 minutes, I guess. Yeah.
Total. So it's about, I guess we have 12 more minutes, right?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Then we are okay. So I can take more queries. Okay. Now at this stage, so I have explained to you why of this mind progression. Then I explained to you what of the mind progression. Then I'm obligated to explain to you how the process. But before that, I guess you may have a question saying that, oh, this is wonderful knowledge, but how is it relevant to me? Why should it be important for me and how do I use it? So I anticipate that query, and this is for you. See, if you can subdivide the 4 successive progressive stages of mind that you can operate from, level 1 and 2, knowledge and learning, is one subset. Level 3 and 4, insight and wisdom, is the second subset. Now, 1 and 2 is outside you, 3 and 4 is inside you. But what's more important is the extreme right column. When you're working on the platform of either knowledge or learning, you must remember that it's primarily undifferentiated. It's common to all. There's not much original thought. We essentially transpose or cut and paste what we know. That's what most of us do on WhatsApp. Circulate what comes from here to there. There's no original thought. Almost, I think 90% of WhatsApp circulation is forwarded. When you choose to operate, on the other hand, from the levels of insight or wisdom is where you differentiate. That's your differentiator, because that's inside you, that's unique to you, and that's your identity. That's where you have independent thinking. Your independent thinking doesn't have to be right or wrong. It's just authentic. And that makes you the real one, the authentic person. I think that's important. So that gives you an identity. Now, as an able and ambitious adult, you have to make a critical choice as to which of these 4 stages of mind that you want to operate from. It's either subset 1, knowledge or learning, or subset 2, insight and wisdom, because that consequently decides what you become. So you either become a faceless part of the crowd, and there's nothing wrong in that as long as you do it consciously, and that's your choice, or you have a choice to stand out, carving a unique identity. And that's a different statement of confidence. Now it is your choice. So as I always say, there is nothing right or wrong. If you remember at the beginning, I said, I'm neither here to give you a GAN, I'm making you aware and more informed, but I have no prescription. I have decided for myself, and so should you for yourself. It is your choice as to which level you want to operate from, because it's a question of your life. That brings me to the final stage of the third component of why, what, and how. Now, once you make a choice to operate at a certain level out of these 4 stages, how do you progress or transition from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4? It starts with an awareness. Well, some of you may have had already, but this is a session where I'm putting the seed. I'm seeding you in terms of making you conscious or aware that they exist. 4 stages, and that you have a choice. So that is the stage which you can grow yourself in awareness. Thereafter, it's your personal choice and commitment. See, nothing happens by acquiring knowledge. Now, I may tell you about what is the plus and minus of jumping from the 10th floor of your apartment and how to save yourself and be alive, but you may still choose to jump because that's your choice. So that's your commitment. You have to make a choice. So that's the second stage before you choose to transform and progress from one stage to another. Now, having made that commitment after the awareness that you get, the way to process and progress on this path is learning from self. I call it inside out pathway. From the school, our conventional pathway is outside in. So we have all the inputs from outside. It's a feeding pathway, which is your teaching, reading, preaching, or your motivational speeches, everything. Inside out pathway is a digestive pathway where you learn from yourself. How do you do that? So you must have increasing focus on why, understanding why or what. Never do anything what the task given to you, even if you're instructed. You should always try and understand why, because that anchors you, that makes you curious, and that puts you on a path. Reflection and introspection, I find as a good tools, and I've used those very effectively for taking juice from your fruits. Each of your completed year, each of your major experience, imagine like a juicy fruit. Now you must ask yourself a question: how many times have you taken juice from how many of the juicy fruits that you have? Because our psychological tendency is to get and acquire more fruits. Reflection, human reflection is equivalent to cow's rumination. Interaction and feedback, seeking. You need to be a seeker. The best seeker I know in the world is Ekalavya. When you are a seeker, you don't need a guru. You find your own way. That's a higher level of evolution. So that you can do through interaction and feedback. And I place enormous significance on seeking solo time, time with you, with yourself. It's not you alone in front of a TV or a book. It's you and you, which is either self-dialogue, meditation. All of this will help you to extract more juice from the fruits you already have. It's about invoking wisdom. Okay. Now, this is where the fun begins. So I end my brief, what do I say, interaction with you or sharing with you with the line saying that this is your important evolutionary journey. And it doesn't end here, obviously. It continues from there. Okay. I'm ready for any interaction, interests, queries, questions, supplementation, challenges, additional thoughts, reflections, because that is how we learn. Over to my audience.
Okay, any questions to Yatin?
Yatin, that is an excellent, analytical summary of how this whole thing works with the mind and how we can, take it from knowledge to wisdom.
Sure.
So yeah, thank you so much for your insights. Yeah, definitely. I think, the challenge comes in, when we are applying, when we're trying to apply, a lot of these things practically, right? I think, how, I think we know we know good documentation. We know all the nice things to be done, but when it comes to action, that's where I think always I feel there is a gap where we need to fill it. I'm not referring to your presentation in specifically, but in general, I'm feeling that there's always an additional set of hands, or some inspiration that humans need. So, for example, as part of Let Us Talk It ecosystem, we recently started an initiative or a startup, called Questica. Which is about like goals, and then how we can gamify the goals, and then also how we can provide the motivation to for the families and individuals to achieve their goals. Actually, we did a pilot for 4 families recently, and there were some good results. That's where I think, Let Us Talk It is working on bridging that gap to provide the needed inspiration and also a group inspiration where the seekers would meet as a group every week to, check the progress and status on their goals. That's also proving to be good, actually. I just wanted to add what Let Us Talk It is also doing, in this context.
No, wonderful. I think the practical experience is always useful because they provide platform to go. What you told to, I think the barrier, that is Srini, right?
Yeah, right.
Yatin. Yeah, Srini, the point that you made on the barrier is the second point on the slide. That's the difference between 99 and 100 in cricket. Like Chetan Chauhan, came very, very close into 90s, but he never crossed 100. So the barrier is actually to make that personal choice and commitment. And you talked of the motivation, which is very true. But, I've seen parallel to this evolution is also the transitioning of the inspiration and motivation points from external to internal. If people are familiar with Maslow's law of hierarchy, they will understand that at some point in time in your journey, your points of inspiration and motivation will move from outside to inside. That's when you take charge of your life. I know it's easier said than done, but it's true. It happens. And that is where you become accountable to yourself. You do it not because your supervisor or boss wants it. You don't do it because it's good to do. You do it because that's what you want to do. And that is possible. I know it's a difficult journey. It's a difficult turn, but I've seen it happening. So I'm hopeful. See, those of you who have crossed on my slide, this slide, those who crossed the stage 1 awareness, which is easy. Second is a commitment. I think they have close to taking that turn.
Yatin, this is Sheetal.
Yes.
I listened to your speech like a Chakora Pakshi for every drop. It's like I don't know if you know that analogy of Chakora Pakshi. The whole night, it waits for the drop. Every single sentence you said.
Yes, Chakora. Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I listened to it. I grasped every single thing that you're talking about. And I have to use that word actually, mind blown, because I have heard speeches before on YouTube or in our Toastmasters and in general. But the way you have basically like peeled a banana to give us the essence is just incredible. And I can't believe that just 10 minutes ago or so, Srini sent me this and I was thinking I'll do other things while listening, but I couldn't. I had to come and really listen because your value that you're adding with your speech is just, it's something that should reach a lot more people.
Thank you. Actually, what you call is banana peel, I exactly understand. We call it peeling onion. In coach, I mean, coaches normally do that. It's peeling onion from to reach the core. But I understand. I think that is. I will use that banana peel sometime.
You know why? Because peeling the onion is actually painful. So I prefer the banana.
Okay. See, if you permit me, there's another analogy I use. In the olden days, we used to have blackboards and white chalks.
Yes.
Okay, you take a white chalk and you start making it blue by pouring blue ink on it. Okay, now after some while, the chalk will appear blue to you from outside. And you take a cross section and you'll see a blue rim because the inside core is still white, right?
Yeah.
That requires you to do more and more and more in iterations of pouring that ink so that it absorbs, it percolates from top to bottom. That is exactly like how culture penetrates from top to bottom in an organization. So that ink percolation is also useful. When Srini was talking, it came to my mind, that analogy. So most of the people will have their surfaces blue. When you start writing, the first line will be definitely in blue. The second will be in white. That's where you wander and take the cross section. You find the core is white and rim is blue. But that only means that you're on the right path. You need to pour and pour and more ink. And surely it will penetrate. For some, the chalks are porous, it can go faster. For some, it will take more time. But the direction is right. And as I said, the point number 2, it depends on your personal commitment. Do you want to give up after 3 pourings saying that only 20% is blue? It is your choice. But I think you can persist and you can still become Ekalavya, as I say.
And I completely agree with that. And Srini will probably recognize the analogy of the coconut. When I asked my fellow Americans and Indians, like, what do you mean by culture? Like when we say my kids, we want our kids to grow up in culture, or we want to be considering like, as if we understand our culture. But I asked them to consider the concept of coconut. Why they're called coconuts? Because we're brown on the outside, but are we really understanding the essence of our roots inside, or are we just being well, it is a derogatory term, but I was pushing my boundaries when I said that. I don't know if you understand the concept of coconut, as in like our kids can dress Indian or brown and look like that, but inside, what do they know? Like besides the gagra and besides the
Yeah.
stuff. That's one of the things. And so
You can
is
use jackfruit also next time. That's more aromatic.
Coconut goes with the color, so
Yeah. Oh, jackfruit can be, ripe, can be black like me.
the one thing I wanted to say about the Ekalavya is absolutely true. One of the things that I came across is that yes, we can be Catholic, we can be Hindu, we can be so many things, but like you said, it's the outside. Unless we
Yes.
are something from inside, and that inside is going to be completely us. It's unique, like a thumb,
Yes.
right? Like a snowflake. And so I really connect with it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful. I'm delighted.
Great. Thank you so much, Yatin. That was really informational, especially the solo time, the meditation. Like most of us right now, like myself, like online school and all that. So the solo time is misinterpreted into just by yourself in front of your computer playing the games that you like, which you have emphasized that it's not the right solo time, just you
Yeah.
and yourself. Yeah, thank you for that. So
Okay.
we shall move to the next topic for today, which is empathy and branding across industries, which will
Yeah.
be discussed by a strategy and brand consultant, a leader which is built in tough situations, really, really tough because she can adapt anywhere, find connection solutions everywhere, and always up for the challenge. And I will present to you Pranayna. And without further ado, please take over and have your presentation.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Team, let us talk it. It is so difficult to follow after Yatin, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna do it because that is a difficult act to follow. Also, I said yes to this on a very short notice. So Yatin, thank you so much for sharing such an insightful presentation. Again, I'm speechless because I don't know how to follow that up. So I don't actually have a brilliant presentation for you guys. When I say branding, for me, it is so much about storytelling. So as I was sitting here, and because before this, I thought, I'm going to talk about branding, something that I've been doing for 11 years. I'm going to talk a little bit about empathy and how that has been effective for me, or how I've used empathy to be a better professional overall. But as I was sitting here and listening to Yatin, I was like, you know what? I think where I want to start with you guys is share my story. So I am from Nepal, and I started my professional journey very, very early on. I was a very shy and introverted child. I still am introvert. You might not be able to tell through my LinkedIn or through my videos, or if you look at my professional graph as well, but I am an introvert. So I grew up in Kathmandu in Nepal, and I moved. After that, I was admitted to a boarding school in India. And though it shouldn't be a culture shock because Indian and Nepali culture are very, very similar, once I moved to India, it was still adapting. So the thing that helped me adapt was to really try to understand people around me and to find commonalities. And that is what helped me adapt to that culture. Once I moved, so that was lesson number one for me. And as I tell you my story, I'll tell you how these lessons have it's the same lessons over and over again. And when I talk about empathy or branding, you will see how there are a lot of commonalities, no matter, even if I was a school student or no matter which country I was in. So then I was 17, fresh-eyed. I went to the US for my bachelor's degree. And once I moved to the States, again, culture shock, being a minority there, and being asked questions like, so there were people who asked me if I lived in an igloo. There was once, I remember it was winter and I was wearing a sweater and someone asked me why I was feeling cold because I came from the country of mountains. And my response was like, wow, you know I come from the country of mountains? Because not many people know about Nepal. But what helped me instead of feeling like an outsider or a minority was, again, finding commonalities. So when I talk about empathy is so much about finding commonality or what you have in common, because you can only put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand their position if you really try to understand them and find something in common to be able to connect. So my first job was being a librarian in US, and my attitude was I wanted to be the best librarian possible. But that idea of practicing empathy, I did not know I was doing it then. But then as I grew older, I realized how it had started very early on, and finding commonality was just the foundation of it. Then I moved on to Australia, where I was living in Perth in Western Australia. And then my proper professional journey began. But I shouldn't call it proper, because the jobs that I learned from the most were never my full-time roles or really fancy positions. There were jobs that I did on the side. So when I moved to Australia, I got a job at Vodafone. This took a lot of hard work because that meant I must have printed about 200 resumes and dropped it in every single shop around malls. And that is how I got a call back. I got the job. Again, I wanted to be the best customer service agent possible. I progressed in my career in Vodafone. And how that progression happened was I was a salesperson. I used to sell mobile phone plans and phones from a kiosk in the beginning of my career. And I realized that people started waiting to speak to me. And I was pretty surprised. And that was my introduction to branding. Because branding, in all these years, that is where I learned it, is customer service first. It's what people think of you, not so much what you think of yourself. So branding for me today as well is the customers or your users' gut feeling about you or your brand. It's never what you say. So me as a customer service agent at Vodafone, when people started waiting for me, it was that, it's what they thought of me. So I used to think I'm just an average salesperson with a funny accent in a country like Australia. But the fact that people waited is because they were happy to talk to me. So branding for me was also about human connection, is how people could connect with me. And again, empathy played a big part because it was about being a great listener. It was about finding commonality with a 70-year-old Australian woman who was retired. And me, this 18-year-old at that point, living in a country like Australia, but finding the common ground and using empathy. That again, empathy came into play for me. And that is where I started getting promoted. So I had 5 promotions in Vodafone, all in all. And at the end of my career at Vodafone, I was business development manager. So, you know, when I say branding or empathy is relevant across industries, empathy is such a human emotion at the end of the day. Because one of the positions that I had later on was running a company. I was a CEO, and I've been a CBO for a startup as well. But what I learned at the very early stages of my career was what got me there and made me a better leader. So the other jobs, I really look at the pattern of my career, the jobs that taught me the most was not even Vodafone and not even the leadership positions. It was the other jobs that I had to do as a student to make my livelihood and to pay my tuition. So I have done sales I tell young people all the time, if you ever get the opportunity to do sales in your life, just do it. I don't think any other job teaches you as much as sales does. So with selling, I sold solar panels over the phone. I sold charity door to door. And the only thing that got me going and made me good at every single job I did was empathy. And empathy just meant, again, finding common grounds and realizing that I'm not selling to businesses. I'm not selling, whether you're a B2B business, or whether you're B2B2C, whether you're B2C. At the end of the day, you are selling to people and they have to connect to you. So again, commonality and being able to put yourself in their shoes, that can only happen if you really realize that it's all about human connection at the end of the day. As I progressed in my career, I will skip a few roles in the middle. As I progressed in my career, I was the first female head of an automotive company. And some of the reason why I'm telling you some of my positions is because whenever I listen to someone, I always ask myself, why should I listen to you? And the thing is, I am an avid reader. I love reading books. I watched a lot of TED Talks. I say watched because recently I haven't had the time. And I've listened to a lot of inspirational leaders, and I have a lot of people that I look up to. But the thing that I can share with you the best is my experience, because that has been my greatest teacher. And I can speak about my experience with a lot of conviction. And that is why I'm talking about, even within branding, I want to take you through my career. So I ventured into marketing and I realized marketing was pretty much the same thing. Marketing. So before I move on, let me tell you a quick difference between marketing and branding, because I've realized that a lot of people mix it up. So my now position is branding consultant and strategy consultant. But when I say branding, it includes everything. So when I do a brand strategy with a company, I talk about your mission, your vision, your strategy, your 5-year plan. How are you going to get there? And whenever I talk about brand, it is always about alignment. And what I learned as a customer service agent or as a salesperson, and what I learned as a CEO is the most important thing for a company is alignment. And that is what branding is about. And that is one of the main reasons why it's relevant across industries, because no matter what industry you belong to, there has to be alignment in your business. And that is what branding is. So one of the positions that I had in my career was I was the first female head of an automotive company in Nepal. So I was running an EV startup. And my position from sales, from selling solar panels over the phone, was what made me a better CEO or a better leader, is because I realized I was still selling, that selling never stopped. That even as a CEO or a CBO, which was my later position with another company, was that I still had to sell. And empathy is so valuable when you have to sell, because as a CEO, what do? You have to convince your board of directors to listen to your ideas, to go along with you and to approve the ideas that you have, whether you talk about financial statements. And as a CEO or as a leader, what do you have to do? You have to get your team on board with you. You are only a leader if people listen to you and follow you. And that can only happen if you can establish connection, that very basic human connection. And without empathy, I don't think anyone can be a great leader. You can run great businesses, but are you truly going to be a leader if people are not listening to you or following you? So even if you're running a very, very technical company, like a tech giant, you still work with people. They will still have to listen to you. They will still have to work with you. And that can only happen through empathy. So that was me as a CEO for an EV startup. Later on, I went on to work with health tech company as well, but it's the same thing. And when I talk about branding and alignment, what branding truly is whereas sales is very outbound, you go and write to people, you write cold emails, you make these cold calls. But what branding does for you is people come to you. Pretty much how Let Us Talk It team came to me, because I realized on all these years, so I've been working for over a decade now, and I have been great at branding other companies, as my career progression can tell you. But the one thing that I was very hesitant about doing was branding myself and putting myself out there. But as I've aged and as I've talked about empathy over the years, one of the things that I would probably like to leave you guys with is empathy has to begin with you first. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to be generous with yourself. And how you treat yourself defines so much of how you treat other people. And I realized that as I've aged. So one of the reasons I've been able to do personal branding now is because I've been kinder to myself, not criticize the way I look, not criticize the fact that, hey, I didn't say this well, or I hesitated a lot, where self-criticism is really, really high. And I realized that I had to be empathetic to myself. As much as I projected outside, I had to begin with me. And that will make me a better leader even more. And then I started beginning personal branding as well. But with these companies, what branding has done, when you do branding really, really well, when there's so much alignment in your organization, the message you pass on to the mass will also be very, very clear. And that empathy that I talk about on an individual level is what branding does with people on a larger scale. So when I'm talking about empathy, I'm talking about human connection between you and me. But when I talk about branding, it is me doing it with 100 people at the same time. I'm taking my brand story to the mass. And what that does, it just proliferates your message. So even if you're sending that cold email or that cold message, no matter what industry your company is operating in, you will just have people respond to you better. You will just have people know who you already are because you focused on branding. So I'm not sure about the audience if you're even thinking of startups or if you have established organizations. Sometimes we tend to put branding in the back burner because we think, okay, marketing and branding is the same thing. So brand is your story, your vision, your mission. People need to be very clear about that. As much as you do and your team does, if people start connecting with your story, which is your mission, your vision, then people respond to you. So all the sales team that you will probably have or already do, their job will be so much easier. So remember that at the end of the day, branding is all about empathy, and branding is all about taking your message to mass in a proliferated way. And I will try to sum it up within that, but that is how it's relevant no matter what industry you belong to. I'm so sorry. I know it has been a little bit all over the place, but I hope you've had some good takeaway from that, from my little story as well. And I hope whatever you do tomorrow, whatever you're doing right now, you remember that it is important for people to know your story, to create that human connection with you, for you or your business to be successful, and for you to be successful as a leader as well. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm done.
Thank you. That's really wonderful. Anyone has wanted to share their takeaways, have or some few questions as well?
Yes, this is Sheetal. Pranayana, that was a beautiful speech. And I could see you using what you're telling us on yourself, even from the beginning to the end of the speech. So you were empathetic to yourself, even though you were, external wanted to compare you to the first speaker. You are brilliant and just natural. And I really appreciate you sharing your story. It is very inspiring.
Thank you so much, Sheetal. That means a lot to me. I'm really, really grateful. Thank you. I hope you've had some good takeaways from this, though.
Yes, very well explained, Pranayana, with a very practical, experiences from your life, how it can be applied, So that is a lot of common sense, and empathy would be so easy then. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rini, and thank you so much for having me on this. I'm extremely grateful to you for giving me a platform to just share my story. It means a lot.
Yeah, pleasure is ours.
Yeah, that's also we are as grateful as having you as well, sharing your stories and inspiring the attendees, especially me, which I am sometimes like criticizing myself in some areas I am inferior with. But yeah, you've shared your experience, which gave me an idea on how to do it. All right. So since everyone have shared their insights and all that, so we can now conclude today. But beforehand, thank you, speakers, for your time, for the efforts, and for all the wonderful things that you have shared to us today. And just to let you know, we also have our live youth Let Us Talk It webinar every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. This week, The topic is Youth's Own Business Ideas. You can join the sessions every Tuesdays and Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time by registering at our website, letustalkit.com/youth. For younger youth group, we have live webinar this Friday, June 4th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Topic is youth favorite summer activities. This will be exciting. Hope you all can join these youth webinars, which will promote and also encourage our youth. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, speakers, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. Bye, everybody. Hi,